More than 3,000 years ago, during one of the darkest periods in Israel's history, there lived a man whose strength would become legendary. His name was Samson, but his story began long before he was born. At that time, the Israelites were suffering under the rule of the Philistines. For 40 years, they lived under oppression, their freedom taken away by a powerful enemy. Fear had become a part of everyday life, and many believed their situation would never change. In a small town lived a woman who had never been able to have children. One day, an angel of the Lord appeared before her with an extraordinary message. She would give birth to a son who would be dedicated to God from birth. The angel instructed that no razor should ever touch the child's hair, for he would live under a sacred vow and would begin delivering Israel from the Philistines. Soon the promised child was born. His parents named him Samson. To everyone else, he seemed like an ordinary baby, but heaven had chosen him for a special purpose. The child, sleeping peacefully in his mother's arms, would one day shake entire kingdoms. His destiny had already been written long before he understood who he was. As Samson grew older, it became clear that he was different. A mysterious strength seemed to live within him. The Spirit of God often came upon him, empowering him in extraordinary ways. One day, while traveling alone through the countryside, Samson encountered a roaring lion. The beast charged toward him with terrifying force. Samson carried no sword, no spear, and no weapon of any kind. Yet instead of running, he stood his ground. The lion attacked, but Samson seized it with his bare hands. In a struggle that seemed impossible, he overpowered the animal and tore it apart. There were no crowds to witness the event. No soldiers stood beside him. Yet the story eventually spread throughout the land. People began speaking of a man with strength unlike anything they had ever seen. Some viewed him as a hero chosen by God. Others feared what such power might mean. Either way, Samson's name was beginning to be known. As Samson's reputation grew, so did the hatred of the Philistines. They saw him as a threat to their authority and feared the influence he was gaining among the Israelites. During a wedding feast, Samson challenged a group of Philistines with a difficult riddle. Confident they could not solve it, he offered them a reward if they succeeded. Days passed without an answer. Desperate to avoid humiliation, the Philistines threatened Samson's wife and demanded that she discover the secret. Under pressure, she repeatedly begged Samson until he finally revealed the answer. She immediately shared it with the Philistines. When Samson realized he had been betrayed, anger consumed him. He struck back against his enemies with devastating force. What began as a simple riddle soon turned into open conflict. Each victory increased Samson's fame. Each battle made him more dangerous in the eyes of the Philistines. The struggle between Samson and Israel's enemies was no longer personal. It had become a war of pride, revenge, and power. The Philistines wanted him destroyed, and Samson seemed unstoppable. Determined to eliminate him, the Philistines sent soldiers to capture Samson. They believed their numbers would guarantee victory, but they underestimated the man they were facing. Looking around for a weapon, Samson found only the jawbone of a donkey lying on the ground. It was not a sword, it was not a spear. Yet in Samson's hands, it became a weapon of incredible power. With fearless determination, he charged into battle. The Philistine soldiers expected an easy victory. Instead, they faced a warrior whose strength seemed beyond human understanding. One after another, they fell before him. News of the battle spread quickly. To the Israelites, Samson became a symbol of hope. To the Philistines, he became a nightmare. His name inspired confidence among his people and fear among his enemies. Yet while armies could not defeat him, a far greater danger was approaching. It would not come carrying a weapon, it would come disguised as love. Her name was Delilah. She was beautiful, intelligent, and far more dangerous than Samson realized. The rulers of the Philistines knew that strength alone could not defeat him. They needed another strategy. They approached Delilah and offered her a fortune if she could discover the secret of Samson's strength. Again and again, she questioned him. Again and again, Samson gave false answers. He claimed that ropes could bind him. They failed. He claimed other methods could weaken him. They failed as well. Each time, Philistine soldiers waited nearby, ready to capture him. Each time, Samson escaped with ease, but Delilah refused to stop. Day after day, she continued asking the same question. Her persistence slowly wore down Samson's defenses. Eventually, he became exhausted by the constant pressure. At last, he revealed the truth. His hair was the sign of a sacred vow between himself and God. If his hair were cut, that vow would be broken. For the first time, Samson had revealed his greatest secret, and for the first time, he had placed his trust in the wrong person. One night, Samson fell asleep with his head resting in Delilah's lap. As he slept, she called for a man to enter quietly. Carefully, he cut the 7 locks of Samson's hair. When the work was finished, Delilah shouted that the Philistines were coming. Samson awoke and rose to fight as he always had. He expected his strength to remain. He believed nothing had changed, but something had changed. The power that had always been with him was gone. The Philistines rushed forward and captured him. They bound him in chains and blinded him. The strongest man in Israel became a prisoner. The crowds that once feared him now mocked him. The warrior who had defeated lions and armies was forced to grind grain like a slave. His greatest defeat had not come on a battlefield. It had come through betrayal. Months passed, perhaps even years. In darkness and captivity, Samson had plenty of time to reflect on the choices that had brought him there. The mighty hero had fallen. But while Samson sat in prison, something important was happening. His hair began to grow again. Meanwhile, the Philistines organized a grand celebration in honor of their victory. Thousands gathered inside a massive temple. They praised their gods and mocked the man they had captured. Eventually, Samson was brought before the crowd to entertain them. The people laughed. The rulers celebrated. No one suspected that the story was not yet over. Standing among his enemies, Samson offered one final prayer. A prayer for strength, a prayer for redemption, a prayer for one last opportunity. Guided to the center of the temple, Samson placed his hands on the 2 massive pillars supporting the structure. Then he prayed, "Lord God, remember me. Strengthen me just one more time." The pillars began to tremble. Cracks spread through the stone. The laughter of the crowd turned into panic. With one final act of strength, Samson pushed with all his might. The temple collapsed. The rulers of the Philistines perished beneath the rubble, and Samson died with them. His life had been filled with triumphs, failures, victories, and painful mistakes. Yet history remembers him as the man with the strength of an army, and the hero undone by misplaced trust. The story of Samson is found in the book of Judges, chapters 13 to 16. Some enemies are defeated by strength. The most dangerous defeat us through trust.